To qualify for an election, council has to pass the authorizing legislation to put the question on the ballot between 60 and 120 days before the election. And so we were shooting for the November general election of 2018. And so the schedule for when to sort of put the legislation on for its 3 readings was dictated by that, so that it fell within the 60 or 120 day limit. Should council have gone and passed it outside of that, it would trigger the call for a special election, and that's in the statute. So that's one of the issues. The second timing issue was when the petitions had to be filed with the Board of Elections. There is not a specific date within either the Constitution or the authorizing legislation. And because of that, I worked with the Board of Elections to set a date so that they would have enough time to review the petitions to certify the signatures, so that they could then go and get the people's names on the ballot, with assuming that they had the correct number of signatures. Those were the 2 sort of different time pressures we were working with here.
Thank you. Thank you for that, because I think that clears up a lot. I'm going to be very brief. I think it's...
Can I ask another question?
Yes, you may.
Did we decide on which type of petition we were going to use? I know we talked a lot about that. Could we just say that?
It's all in the
Well, I
ordinance.
know, but could we just say that so it's on record?
This is once again in the legislation. It is the Secretary of State's Form 3P, which is the individual, rather than sort of a group.
Okay, thank you.
Rob, I had the question presented to me. If the voter votes no on the charter, do they get to vote for the 15 people then?
Yes,
They still get to vote?
yes.
Okay.
Is that whether you vote yes or no on the question of to have a commission, you still should vote for up to 15 people who would make up that commission.
Okay.
Nancy, you had a question?
Well,
Or a thought?
Well, first I have a question for Rob. Did you ever get any response from the Attorney General?
I have not received an additional call from the Attorney General, but their initial position was that the opinion, which is 71-017, is still valid. It has never been revoked, and there have been no changes to the legislation that would affect it. So,
Would you like to read that, please?
that deals with whether or not a member of City Council could, in fact, be on the Charter Commission, and the answer would be no.
Or any elected official, for that
Well,
matter.
basically any elected official, yes.
That's
correct.
But the specific question asked in the opinion is made a member of City Council.
Right.
But that logic would extend to other elected office holders, yes.
Correct. Which is a good way to keep all interested parties off of
Absolutely.
the commission.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. After hearing from my constituents and many of your constituents, after reading the opinion comments in our Mount Vernon News, and I do respect them, and comments from those who are confused about charter issues, plus listening to people who have come forward in the last 2 city council meetings, and this evening, I must agree with the consensus of public opinion that we have not done any due diligence in allowing enough study time on this city charter ordinance. And because of all this and the lack of knowledge on this issue regarding a possible extreme change to our local government structure, which many people do not want, I believe we would not get a balanced representation on the Charter Commission from all areas of the city. Who would want to serve on a charter commission except those who already had a strong personal interest to remold the city government structure? For all these reasons and more, I would encourage each of you, my fellow council members, to vote no on ordinance 2018-17.
If I may then, I'll
Thank
finish
you.
mine real quick. Thanks, Mrs. Vale. First of all, I don't think we heard from a consensus of the 16,492 people that live in our community. I think we heard from a small few that are very passionate and have exercised their rights as members of the citizenship to come and share with us. And I think that process has worked wonderfully. We've heard from them. We understand where they stand. Some of them make extremely valid points, but I think we need to be very careful on not allowing a dozen people to become the consensus of 16,000 plus. The other comment I would like to make is, we referred to Columbus in a rather derogatory sense this evening. And, Columbus is doing a lot of great things. We heard Jeff Harris talk about Columbus 2020. I was fortunate enough to attend that meeting with him the last time that we were downtown with the Morpsey presentation, and it was a phenomenal meeting, and Columbus is doing wonderful things. One of the emails that we received over the weekend listed a few, and I am not going to call them out because there are great people that live in each of those communities, but I would encourage members of council to reflect back on one of the emails that we received. And they listed quite a few cities within 65, 70 miles. And I think every one of us, if we're honest with ourselves, would look at that list and realize that there are quite a few of those that we don't want to be part of.
Absolutely.
We do not want to model ourselves at the bar of where those cities are right now across the board. So I'd just like to encourage you guys to take that in consideration. I'm going to respectfully disagree with the comments made by Mrs. Seville. I served this community as a public safety officer for 15 years. I have spoke with firefighters. I have spoke with police officers. I've spoke with officers of both departments over the last month. Trust me when I tell you, the antiquated civil service process, whether there is an oral board attached to it or not, needs to be modified, and the community could potentially do that. I am not going to smear names up here, but I think we know we've had a fire chief indicted in recent years on, I believe it was 14 felonies. We had a police chief exit under some pretty shadow stuff. We had a fire captain exit under some pretty heavy accusations. We had a police captain exit under some pretty accusations. If you want to know what's broke, those are some examples that were 3 inches above the fold from the Mount Vernon News. So I respectfully disagree with those comments. So I stand behind my stance that this is the direction that this
I
council
called the
should
question.
take. Could you hold on till I'm done talking?
I still call it a question.
All right, well, wait till
Call
I'm
the
done.
question, it means it takes a vote of 2/3 of the people to call the question.
Wait a minute, what does that mean?
That means we
She
voted.
wants to cut off debate, so we need
She wants to
vote
cut
no
off
on the
debate and vote right away, so we need to take a vote. If 2/3 of the people agree to call the question, debate ends.
Vote no.
Okay, fair enough.
Mrs. Knoll?
Mr. Francis?
No.
Mr. Menapace?
No,
Mr. Starr?
No.
Mr. Gotke?
No.
Mrs. Seabolt?
No.
Mr. Brony?
No.
Mrs. Vale?
Yes.
Okay, the question is not called.
should I keep going?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's keep it timely, okay?
All right, I swear to God, I'm wrapping it
Yeah.
up. It's just, we really haven't had time to talk as a group.
Right.
We just haven't.
We've given the people time.
we need time.
We've had time to call each other up
Right.
and talk.
So I just urge us to remember that we all up here realize that we're not here because we're smarter than our constituents. We're not up here because we think better than our constituents. They elected us to represent them, and I can think of no better way to do that than to give them the ability to choose on whether or not they would like to structure their government. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not gonna have any more, but I hope everybody's done. Was you done?
I'm done.
Okay. I didn't get my 3 minutes. I'm gonna be real quick about it, because I don't want the question called on me, because then I'll vote yes. Sometimes when you get into a heated battle and it goes on for some time, Mr. Godke may be aware of this, but there's this thing called the fog of war. And things get foggy and you lose sight of what your perspective is, what your target is. Now, people have looked at charter for quite some time. I had to look at it all over again after the first meeting. Frankly, it didn't go over good with me. But I had to check out what it was all about. I had to teach myself. And the most simple thing for me to say to the general public about this piece of legislature, not charter, is I worked 20 plus years in a major manufacturing plant. And whenever we had defaults in efficiency and productivity and safety, they went out and they hired a consultant team. Now, I heard Mr. Ball and Mr. Menepes talking about a project, and they're hiring a consultant team to come in and review things for that project, and Mr. Menepes was asking Mr. Ball about some stuff that was going to go on down the road, and he goes, we got the wagon in front of the horse, we got to listen to the consultants first. That's what this piece of legislation is, except we're not hiring a consultant group. We're asking 15 individuals to voluntarily step up and come into City Hall and look at the skeletons in our closet. Look at the deficiencies that we have. Look at how the departments are running. And we're not talking about restructuring our government. We're wanting them to consult as a team the deficiencies and the inefficiencies in this city and its structure and the way it's governed. That's what we're voting on. We're asking 15 members of public to come in as a consultant team, and they may not find anything wrong. They may find some things wrong, but it doesn't mean erasing the whole structure of our government or how we run things. Doesn't mean they're going to get rid of civil service. Right now, it's a commission, so we can't be fogged in the time that we have to be still. The answer is, if it's not broke, why fix it? We're not fixing anything. We're wanting somebody to come in and look at it from a different perspective and see if these deficiencies can be tweaked from here or if it needs something to be done by the voters. Now I'll call the question.
Any other discussion? Then we'll move to the vote. Mrs. Newell.
Mr. Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Menepes?
Yes.
Mr. Starr?
Yes.
Mr. Gotke?
Yes.
Mrs. Seabolt?
No.
Mr. Barone?
Yes.
Mrs. Vale?
No.
By a vote of 5-2, this ordinance is adopted, and it did take 5 votes in order for that to happen. That's exactly what we had.